Hello, welcome to another episode of Most Man. How y'all doing out there? Please, I want you to smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. Ring the bell, comment, come on and comment. We are on Rumble. Come over to Rumble. Rumble is the platform that is the future. We are on, and also like and subscribe when you come to Rumble. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the website. Contact at jointhemensclub.com is the email if you want to reach out to us. This is a company about building better men and a community of just building better men. We get into it on all sorts of details on all of our, you can look at some of our past stuff, future stuff. But speaking of good men, we got the man back. So we got John O'Shea back running for Congress. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be back with you guys.
Yeah. So when you were here the last time, great podcast, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had a chance to watch it. It turned out well. It was two friends having a conversation. So
right, but I mean, people that normally don't comment were commenting.
Oh, good. I didn't get a chance to see the comments. So
yeah, they were good. So people that I know, but people that normally don't commented. So it went well, and we posted it on Friday, so it still hasn't even got its legs yet. Everybody will watch it today.
Okay,
and that's kind of how they go. Is your loyals will watch, and then it just keeps going after that.
Well, I'll see if I can't help boost it out. So.
Yes, please. But yeah, the last time you were here, you had to dart off to a debate. How'd that go?
Well, it went well. So one of the things I think we talked about that I'd like to give your audience some insight in is actually kind of what takes place in a campaign, because you know, it's kind of this black box. Everybody thinks, well, how do you run for office? I mean, what do you do, right? So the debates, candidate forums, going to grassroots organizations and meetings, having meet and greets, it's all part of it. But I thought maybe what I could do is kind of step back and kind of start to kind of lay down the pieces. And again, it's going to be different. You know, I'm running in a congressional race. So, you know, there's 38 congressional representatives in the state of Texas. So, you know, my district has the top 2/3 of Parker County and then the western half of Tarrant County, about 840,000 people. And it's a big. Well, it's like 1,440 square miles. So trust me, I've put a lot of mileage on my car.
Yeah, you have.
But so when somebody starts to consider something like this, that they feel this calling, and that's the thing I would also recommend is, you know, too many people kind of get in it for their own self-enrichment, or they're a narcissist and they think,
grandiose.
Hey, yeah, I'm gonna have my name in spotlight. People are gonna want to talk to me. People are gonna want to know who I am, and you can quickly ferret out those types of people. Like, for example, I mentioned on the last episode that, I've been friends with Ken Paxton for the last 20 years. And I take him with me to places to meet people, both for his benefit and sometimes, for the people he's meeting. And the funny thing is, whenever people, kind of catch me afterwards to talk about our visit, they always go, God, he's just such a genuinely nice guy. I mean, he's exactly who he appears to be on camera. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's no pretentiousness about him. He's just a normal guy. In fact, that's how he and I got to be friends. But then there's the people that you meet that kind of put on airs and, they don't want to be bothered, or you hear that they don't return phone calls for constituents and, people calling the office. And hey, that's one thing that's taking place right now that I highly encourage. You guys remember, these elected officials work for you. There is a reason why it's called civil service, because they work for you and they should be accountable to you. And we're starting to see that. The people are becoming much more aware. They're starting to call their Congress people, their senators. They're calling their state representatives. They're calling school board members, city councilmen, in which they should. But so when somebody starts to feel a calling for it, like, hey, look, this isn't about me. This is about the community, or this is about, my family and my kids and my grandkids' future, or, serving God, or whatever the impetus is for that calling. What I would encourage you to do is start to find there is this tremendous network of clubs all throughout the DFW area, and it's similar other parts of the country as well. So, for example, again, I kind of focusing on, the from Tarrant County over to Parker County. You've got, Parker County Republican Club. You've got the Parker County, the Arlington Republican Club, the Arlington Women's Republican Club. You've got a group called Freedom Fighters. You've got Northeast Tarrant County Republican Club. You've got, what are some of the other ones? Well, you've got the Executive Committee for the Tarrant County GOP. You've got Parker County Republican Women. You've got the Parker County Conservatives. You've got the Parker County GOP. There's the Metroplex Republican Women. I mean, there's just this vast network of clubs. And it's good to go to those things because you quickly start to meet the same kind of cadre over and over again. These are the people who are really involved behind the scenes. These are people who are concerned about the community, concerned about the county, concerned about the state, the country. And they're not doing things for the limelight. They're not doing things for, kind of these selfish reasons. They're patriots and are wanting to do the right thing. Going to those meetings, you start to learn kind of what the important topics are. You start to, get a sense of who the real movers and shakers are behind the scenes. And you start to get your name out there. And so, when I first decided that this was something that I was going to do, because I was just incensed that the 2020 election was stolen, and that I had a pretty strong inkling that the current administration or regime was going to do everything in their power to destroy the country. Which,
boy, they have.
Yeah, I mean, in 3 years, I'd love to have anybody point out one thing that this administration has done right. But so at that point, I knew I was going to run. And in fact, it kind of reached out to the gentleman, Don Smith, who's my campaign manager, and started saying, hey, look, obviously this is premature. We got the 2022 midterms coming up. So, we're a year away from that. It's probably too early for me to run then. And candidly speaking, I kind of knew that really for me, the desire was to be there when the next Republican, and I knew it was going to be President Trump. He was already starting to do his kind of, rise back to the playing field and coming back out and putting the chip down on the table that he was going to be the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. I just didn't think Biden was going to help him out this much by, screwing things up this badly. Well, at that point, we started talking about, okay, so you're involved in these groups. I was already a precinct chair, so I was involved in the Tarrant County Republican Party. I started going to these club meetings and started to meet people, started to help out, started to volunteer. I started helping out with some fundraisers for groups like I think I mentioned last time, the Texans for Vaccine Choice. Mm-hmm. There's a group called the Texas Family Project, which is all about protecting the family rights, parental rights, not teaching our kids to be racist or, gender ideologically confused and all these kinds of things. Well, there's this huge group of these people, and you start to meet them and you start to get known by them. So when I decided, after the municipal elections last year in 2023, and I'd had lunch with Congresswoman Granger to inform her that I was going to run against her in the primary, I went ahead and announced, well, at that point in time, I already had some name recognition, some name ID. So one of the first things we did as we started to bring money into the campaign is that we went ahead and commissioned a poll. And what we wanted to do, because this is a primary race, okay? And what I mean by a primary race is this district is heavily Republican lean.
Oh, for sure.
In the 2020 election, Donald Trump won by 18 points. So
yeah.
People will refer to it as an R+18 district.
Yeah.
So really the Democrat doesn't have any shot. In fact, oftentimes, people don't even know who the Democrat is.
No, we don't even pay attention to that.
Yeah, and they don't raise money. And I mean, it's just somebody that wants to go through the exercise, I guess. But
yeah, it needs to practice.
Yeah. So what we did is we focused on our poll on Republicans who vote in the primary. And again, I want to emphasize the primary vote is the most important vote for a strong Republican district, because more than likely whoever comes out of that primary is going to win unless they do something massively, colossally stupid or screw up or something just unforeseen happens.
What's your date? This date is March 5th.
March 5th is the actual, Super Tuesday. So that's when Texas holds all of their Democrat and Republican primaries. And so people who are going to come out to vote for President Trump, for the Republican nominee, they're going to see under that there's going to be the Senator Cruz's race. And then right after that, so it's going to be the president, the senator, then it's going to be their congressional district, the people running in that congressional seat.
Yeah.
What I don't think anybody really understood, I know I didn't at the time because, candidly speaking, I didn't vote in primaries. I just figured, hey, whoever has the R behind their name,
me too.
They share our values, right?
Yeah.
Well,
No,
not at all. And in fact, the funny thing is, really, the importance of a primary kind of got laid out originally by Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, because she ran in this Democrat district up in New York against an incumbent, meaning somebody who already occupied the office. And he kind of just had been there for so long, he just kind of took it for granted. And she actually went out and block walked and knocked on doors and had a volunteer army behind her. And really with a very small vote, again, I'm making up the numbers, but say there were 1 million people in that district, maybe only 30,000 people or 40,000 people showed up to vote in that primary. And as a result of that, she beat the incumbent, and she was the Democrat candidate going into the general election in an area where the Republican had no chance of winning. So all of a sudden people went, holy cow, I can't believe that strategy. They took out, a sitting congressman by primarying him. And so people started to understand, okay, well, maybe we need to start paying attention to the primaries. Well, then when it really was driven home to me, look, I mean, again, I hate to sound like I'm picking on Congresswoman Kay Granger, but she's been in there for 14 terms, 28 years now. And the reason why she's been there is because people just didn't bother showing up to the primary or didn't support primary challengers.
And she's had a pretty long list of not good outcomes.
Well, her voting record from a conservative perspective leaves a look. It's funny. She was critical of President Trump, and one of the first things she said when he announced that he was running in 2016, she said, well, he was a Democrat. And when I heard that, I thought, well, Kay, you were a Democrat too before you ran for mayor of Fort Worth.
Well, but he lived in New York. I mean, and just think about,
right.
Here's the easiest way to sum that up. What's his name? Michael Franchese. Okay, he was the guy that he was a mob guy. He did the big gas. He was the one of the top guys for either the Colombo family or one of those big families.
Okay.
And he has a podcast, and he's written all these books. He's like, look, we were in New York. Everybody's a Democrat in New York. And here's the thing is that's they were like, well, why are you now a conservative? He said, I've been conservative my whole life.
Right.
But the Democrats were easier to con. I mean, like they were easier to corrupt. You couldn't corrupt the Republicans.
Well,
but no, I'm not talking about Trump, but I'm just saying, look at all the business he did up there. When he debated Hillary Clinton, he's like, I got along with everybody.
Yeah.
I gave everybody money.
Right.
That was my job. Why would I not get along with everybody? I got to do business in one of the most competitive cities in the world.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of them that and I'm going to turn it back over to you, but I got a lot of friends that we used to argue all the time that are Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I said, you are more on our side that you just, but they are now.
Yeah. Well, look, unfortunately, partisan politics has kind of become like the blood sport for families. And so if you grew up in a household, for example, back when you and I were younger, and, you grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, well, by God, you were a Cowboy fan.
Right.
And there was no way you were ever going to cheer for the Houston Oilers,
right.
Even though I happen to love Earl Campbell. And, but still, I mean, there was that divide. And so I think we've kind of almost morphed that into our politics. Our family has always been, Blue Dog Democrats, or our family has always been, kind of conservative Republicans. And so a lot of times people will just be aligned with the party and not even really understand whether or not the party actually aligns with their personal values or not.
Well, but I don't think that the lid's been blown off as hard as it's been blown off, and we're tired of it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we made the comment last time about the fact that Latinos and Hispanics are culturally conservative.
Yeah.
Well, in large part, the black community is as well.
Yes.
I mean, they're a church going. Grandma's the head of the family, and by God, what she says goes, and a strict culturally conservative people. But they've been brought to believe that the Democrats are the ones who are looking out for their interests. The Democrats are the ones that are providing us government assistance. The Democrats are the ones who actually care about us. When, ironically enough, I mean, the two Republican Party platforms when the party was first formed was abolishment of slavery and ending polygamy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why the polygamy? Now, and here's the funny thing. So the Republicans did abolish slavery. I mean, President Lincoln was a Republican president. And they did abolish polygamy, and yet the black community has historically voted for the Democrats over the last several decades, and the Mormons, ironically, are very strong-leaning Republicans. So, and again, I think the Mormon Church has tended to move away from the polygamy aspect, but I just kind of note that irony. but kind of getting back to the primary, and so
do they organize all that? These clubs that you're and I don't want to get you off track.
No, that's fine.
Are they the ones that you don't have to get into it now. You can finish what you're saying. But my question is, who organizes everything that you show up to? Because you've got a wild schedule, man.
Yeah. Well,
so you can reach on that later. But go ahead and say what you're going to say. But that's what when you were talking about what it's like to be on the campaign.
So, yeah, like most of the clubs have like a monthly meeting. You have some clubs that meet more frequently than that. But, and they associate with a restaurant or, one of the clubs, either downtown or one of the country clubs or, Risky's Barbecue or, someplace, where they hold their regular meeting. And yeah, they self-organize. So they'll have their own officers. They'll have, they run it like an organization. Now, the primary itself, that's run by the county parties. So, for example, even though my district is kind of two different primary votes that are going to be taking place, part in Tarrant County, part in Parker County. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when I announced that I was running against Congresswoman Granger, originally, everybody said, you're crazy. You're taking on a 14-term incumbent. She's supported by all the lobbyists and all the K Street money, which is where all the lobbyist offices reside.
Well, they don't know your worth ethic.
Yeah, but look, there are a lot of people who are fatalists that say, you're not going to be able to overcome the money. I mean, she's going to bury you in TV ads and signs and all kinds of events, and I thought, well, okay, well, we'll see. Well, the funny thing is, it turned out I was right because she must have saw the polling, and midsummer she decided to drop out, and she handpicked her successor, which I think we've been over. State Representative Craig Goldman, who originally ran as a Tea Party conservative and then got co-opted by the establishment, and his voting record shows he's anything but conservative right now. He's a go-along-to-get-along politician.
Yeah.
But anyway, once I was the only candidate announced in the field, and she stepped down. The day after she stepped down, Craig Goldman filed, so it was coordinated.
Oh, yeah.
They knew it. And in fact, we've had former staffers for Congresswoman Granger tell us that, no, that had been arranged and orchestrated. And in fact, she's handed over all her donor list and mailing list because I was on Kay Granger's mailing list, and so now I'm getting mailers from Craig Goldman, which I think, wouldn't you at least scrub your list to see if you're sending mailers to your actual opponent?
Oh, that'd make too much sense. I'd have to work.
So, hey, if anybody here knows Craig Goldman, you can tell him I'm actually receiving all his mail pieces. He may want to look at that. But then 3 other people kind of jumped in because it was an open seat, and it's the first time it's been an open seat in almost 3 decades. And so, now what happens? So beginning February 20th, so a week from tomorrow, early voting starts. In fact, mail-in ballots have already started going into the ballot centers, and they're already starting to process them. But for until March 1st, people are going to be able to go to their polling locations and vote early. I know there are a lot of Republicans who right now are so concerned about early voting versus game day voting, and I can make an argument either way. I will say if you vote early, then that's the only piece of information that any of the candidates or their campaigns can look at. They can see this person's already voted, and so as a result of that, you're giving the candidates and the parties the opportunity to go focus on the people who are the stragglers who haven't gone and vote, or making sure that they're the ones who actually do go on game day, on election day, March 5th. So there's that aspect of it. Plus, you could also have a situation like what happened in Maricopa County in 2022, where all the voting machines worked perfectly fine all through the early voting day, were recertified the night before the actual election. And then when everybody showed up then to vote for a Republican slate, especially at the top of the ticket there was Kerry Lake for governor, all of a sudden all these voting machines went down. And you had lines 3-4 hours long, and then ballots. There was ballot confusion because some people were checking out of one polling location and going to another, and then they were being told, well, you haven't officially left the other one, so we're only going to be able to give you a provisional ballot, meaning your ballot may count. We don't know. So I understand the argument about not giving the opposition
a chance
to kind of see how
ballot
much they have to make up.
Yeah.
But
it gives you a good meter.
It gives us not only a good meter, but it gives the voter a chance to know that their vote actually is recorded in the bank and done, prior to the election day. So all that's taking place. And so right now there's 5 of us in the field, and we offer, I would say there's the 4 of us, myself and the last 3 people who entered after the state representative filed. We're all grassroots. We're all, by and large, America First people, but with very different backgrounds or different agendas, different tones and styles. And, again, now I think they all seem like fine people. There's one candidate in particular who is very perturbed with me because I've already gone out and kind of been visiting with the precinct chairs and the grassroots people. And so when this candidate shows up and is trying to solicit support, this person's being told, oh, we already are backing John O'Shea. We're already supporting him. Oh, we're already volunteers for his. And so this candidate is getting very frustrated and, in fact, is starting to spread rumors, which that's another aspect of it that's fun. I mean, if you go run for public office, and I don't care if it's from school board all the way up to Congress, just be prepared, because people are going to start to say and all kinds of things about you, and whether or not there's any just kernel of truth or not, they're going to distort it, or they're just going to flat make up stories. And this candidate, in fact, we just had probably a email blast that we're getting ready to send out where we're refuting one of these accusations because, it was just so outlandish. But we've now heard from multiple sources, and I actually saw texts from one of the area leaders that was interacting with this candidate and explaining why she supported John O'Shea, and this guy was like saying, well, that's just egregious. I can't believe it. You lack discernment. You don't know this about him. You don't know that about him. And it was like, no, I've actually known him for several years now. I've been in the trenches working with him. You're the person I don't know. And so, it's just, my campaign manager gets a little frustrated with it. It makes me chuckle because it lets me know that I'm over the target. That if people were ignoring you, then you should be concerned.
Well, I think that too, that people we know that's happening now. Like, if they're spreading mud, it's because they're covering up mud. They don't want their.
Yeah. Oh, I think
that model has been exposed.
The best term I've heard for it is called confession through projection.
Yes.
Meaning whatever it is that you yourself are guilty of, you go accuse your opponent of. So then that way, they're
Biden, Trump.
Yeah. They're actually having to answer and kind of defend, the allegations, all the while you're deflecting and nobody's looking at you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that was a tactic developed by Sal Alinsky, who was one of the left's first kind of real, community organizers and activists in the Democratic Party. And
well, there's people that are still lost out there that they never paid attention to it, and they probably never will. But actually, Dom, the billboard, my billboard guy, he's going to stop by later on. I told him, let us get through this to where, I don't know if you have any place to go. We got another podcast after this, but I wanted him to come by. That way you could see what I'm saying about these younger guys.
Good.
They're plugged in.
Okay.
And he wanted to just make sure you knew that. And I told him what your manager wanted is to pick his brain, like what's going on with his, their generation. And he's like, I'm all in.
Okay. No,
He
that's
was
good to
he was for you before he brought you up.
hear. Right.
Okay, I've told you this story, but he brought you up, and I was like, "You're young, man." He's like, "Yeah, but we're in."
Okay.
So that was a relief to me. And like I said, my son is 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They are plugged in too.
Yep.
They see what's going on in their schools.
Yeah.
And they don't like it.
No, they're being hit over the head with it.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Go
getting
ahead.
back, no. So I was going to say, so getting back to kind of that early stages when I'm making the rounds with the clubs and getting involved in the county party, and we launched our first poll, and it was of Republican primary voters. And so obviously, like I said, since this is the primary race, what we were trying to figure out was, among other things, what people, because at the time it was Congresswoman Kate Granger was going to be my opponent, what people thought about her, whether or not people thought it was time for new leadership in the Republican Party, whether or not they kind of viewed themselves more as America First wing of the Republican Party, or whether they were the more establishment country club Republicans, and then also one thing that was important to me was what kind of name ID did I have, because I had not run for office before. It wasn't like there was any reason for people to know me outside of these clubs, and these clubs are the people who are the most active. They don't represent the voting base in general, because most voters, especially conservatives, like we've said before, are preoccupied taking care of their family and going to church and kids' activities and things of that nature. They see what they see on Fox News. It's they're not showing up at the the Freedom Fighters Book Club or things like that.
Right.
So we got information back, and what I had been told, and I confirmed this with Ken too, is that what's typical for a first-time candidate in a poll, is that you're going to have anywhere from 6 to 8% name ID. You just less than 10% of the people are going to know
you are.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's some reason for you, like you're a popular pastor, or you have some prominent business or something like that, and
like a Moncrief or something like that.
Yeah, right. And so actually, we were really pleasantly surprised. And, I'd written lots of op-eds into the papers. I'd been, like I said, involved in these different organizations and fundraisers. And so my ID came back, name ID, at 27%. So,
wow.
I was like 1 in 4 primary voters already knew who I was. And no, wait, I take that back. Accuracy matters. It was 22.5%, so just over 1 in 5. And it was 75.
That's still good, though.
Yeah, it was 75% favorable. So, and this was almost a year before the election. Well, 9 months before the election. So we're like, okay, well, hey, that's a hill that looks like we can climb. I mean, we can kind of continue to build our name ID, especially once you announce that you're a candidate, then all of a sudden people start inviting you to come speak at their events or at their forums. And so, that's what we started doing. And so your question about, how did the event go the other night? Well, it's funny. So like I said, there's really 3 other people who are kind of similar to me in that they're anti-establishment. They're, more of the America First, even though they may not frame themselves that same way, but they're not, they're not part of this traditional establishment. One of the ladies, who is a very intelligent, very polite lady, very likable, but, she considers herself more Reagan. She wasn't very Trump leaning. I've noticed her starting to turn her message around a little bit based on some of the feedback or things. But so one of the very first candidate forum that we had was the Parker County Conservatives, their club. That grassroots organization's huge. They have like 800 to 900 members. I mean, it's a big active group, and a typical meeting for them is 500 or 600 people. So I mean,
because there's a lot of stuff happening in Parker County, and those people they want to know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, no, and I'm impressed. I mean, hey, kudos to them. That's great when the community is that, organized and together. So they had 5 seats up on the stage, and they had a moderator who had, questions that nobody had been, seen or shown before. And 4 of us showed up. The gentleman who was picked by the establishment, who has all the money, he originally just wasn't showing up to things. Well, in fact, by and large, I think he's made, out of the 10 or 12 events that we've had so far, I think he's been to 2. And one of them, he didn't think anybody else was going to show up, because I know he was very surprised when I was there. And so, they'll ask the questions, and you get to kind of be able to kind of give a comparison. So, okay, well, this person leans, more conservative with regard to, their answer on the border is, detain, deport, finish building the wall, declare, the cartel's enemy combatant, stop funding the NGOs. I like that position. Okay. This person, it was kind of nice, but not really as well thought out, or maybe this person seems more moderate, or so you start to give the voters the opportunities to kind of see these things. And so the one that was the other night when I had to leave the podcast to go to was being thrown by the Fort Worth Report, which is the digital media, kind of news outlet now for Fort Worth. You've got the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, which I guess is still a traditional print and online newspaper. And then the Fort Worth Report is one that's a free online subscription paper. And so they had it over at Texas Wesleyan and in their auditorium. And, there were maybe, 120 people. It was not as well attended as they thought, but they were streaming it online as well. And, it was kind of that same format. They had the four of us there because, again, Goldman didn't show up for this one either. In fact, I had a volunteer make up a milk carton that actually had Craig Goldman's picture on it and said, missing. And then on the other side had my campaign logo on it. And I mean, it's.
Did he show up? Did he show up?
No, he didn't show up. Yeah, he was at a fundraiser in Austin.
So quick question on this. How did it do on stream? Because that's what the younger people do. They stream. They don't.
Yeah, I didn't see actually kind of the streaming numbers, but I did hear that they were pleased with the event overall. And then the other thing of it is then they wrote an article in the next day's paper about it and kind of contrasted the different candidates there. Like, for example, I mean, the one thing I will say is I'm the only one that's consistently saying, look, pick your flavor of the four people here on the stage in front of you, but it needs to be one of us. It cannot be this rhino person here. He said point blank at the one event that I showed up at that he didn't expect me to be at. And so it was just the two of us. And so we actually had kind of a little bit of a head-to-head debate because it was a rhino organization. And so they didn't invite everybody, but we had members who told us. And so we made sure that we were there. And in fact, they cut our debate short because they were looking through the questions that the audience was wanting to ask, and they were going, nope, we're not going to ask them that. Nope, we're not going to ask them that. But one of the things that Craig Goldman said was, hey, look, out of all the candidates in this race, I'm the only one with the proven track record. I'm the only one who's actually gone and done these things and gotten this legislation passed. And so I'm going to go do in Washington, D.C., exactly what I did in Austin. And so he walked back, handed me the mic. I got up there and I said, well, there's one point where State Representative Goldman and I completely agree on. Please do check his record because his record is not conservative the way he's portraying himself to be. Let me give you some examples. And I just started walking through some of the votes that he's made. In fact, one of the things that a volunteer told me the other day, and I've got to look into it, but this person's never wrong. They're very involved and they go down to Austin all the time. There was actually a bill for digital ID that passed the Texas House. Now, fortunately, it got killed in the Senate. But just think about it. The Texas House of Representatives, the Texas legislature, actually was going to pass kind of a digital ID, kind of social credit score kind of system.
Dear God.
Yeah, which, I mean, doesn't that sound like something right out of a dystopian playbook? I can't believe that he would have voted for it. But like I said, I will go independently verify that. Trust but verify. So anyway, these events give people a chance to get up there and kind of talk. And one of the candidates is very sweet and well-intentioned, but it's very clear that they don't have a grasp of a lot of the subjects. Another one of the candidates is, again, a very intelligent person, but really you can tell hadn't given much consideration to politics before this. And so they're almost kind of working out their position as they're talking. Yeah. And, and then you have another one who's got a much different take, much different tone than myself. And, candidly speaking, I think, I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah. I don't have anything nice to say.
Yeah, no, you told me about that. Yeah, that's kind of... That's kind of odd.
Yeah. Well, as it happens, that person is the one who's also going around trying to trash me, And I think you can always tell something. I mean, look, when I speak about State Representative Goldman, I stick just to his votes, right? I don't have any personal animus. I know people who think he's a wonderful guy. I know some people who think he's not. I don't have that level of relationship with them. I'm supposed to love all my brothers and sisters, even the ones that I disagree with. In fact, the only thing that I can say that I have personal fault with him about is that he is trying to portray himself as a true conservative, running on his record. And what I'm saying is he would really rather people not dig in and go look at his record, because he started off very conservative, but then when he got co-opted by the establishment and became part of the party leadership, he quickly started changing some of his votes and just started voting the way the Speaker of the House wanted him to vote. And unfortunately, the Speaker of the Texas House is not a conservative person at all. And in fact, I hope he gets beat in this primary coming up March 5th.
Yeah, so that's why I asked about the streaming, because that's something that I wanted. We can talk off mic about it. Mm-hmm. That's why I wanted to give you this, not this platform, my platform. I mean, but moving forward, like, so what we see, like, right. And this is probably like the 60th episode, something like that. We didn't get anything figured out till like 30, 35. I mean, this whole streaming, YouTube, this whole is man. It's done this. It's but here's the thing, it grows like this. You think everybody used to be all about getting views, but long term, and I don't want to give you advice, but I'm just saying, I think for politicians in general, like, that's why Trump does so well. Mm-hmm. It's because he's online.
Well, he's communicating with people. So that's
what I'm saying.
This is it. Yeah, I mean, look, the legacy corporate media can no longer operate as the gatekeepers. So, in fact, I think I've mentioned before that all the establishment money went in behind Representative Goldman. So he's running, commercials on Fox News, and guess what? I can't afford to be airing TV commercials, but what I would suggest now is that more people are digesting their news and getting their information from things like this show. And there's a whole slew of shows out there. So it's easier to start to get your voice heard. It's easier for you to start to penetrate. And in fact,
you don't have somebody with the gotcha questions and all that.
Well, but hey, I even am happy to go do those things because it will show your mettle. I mean, there was one of the clubs that I went to, it was bipartisan, and there was a candidate in a different race, somebody who I support, who's running for the state house, District 97, which in fact is the district seat for Craig Goldman. So because he's running now for Congress, he's not on the ballot for that seat. So a woman named Cheryl Bean, who was actually originally a supporter, well, she's still a supporter of mine, but she started off getting involved in kind of the local politics by supporting my race. And then when she kind of felt a calling, she stepped into that. And I said, well, hey, look, I'll be happy to help you because, my congressional race gets a little more attention because it's a bigger area. So, more people involved. And then that way we can kind of team up and I can have some of my volunteers double up and kind of help because we're very ideologically aligned, very strong Christians. And so my supporters, when they meet her, they fall in love with her as well. Like, oh, no, absolutely. We'll be happy to block walk for the both of you. We'll be happy to put yard signs out for the both of you. I mean, it's so it kind of helps, support one another.
Man, you got a team behind you too. I wasn't shocked, but I didn't know how big your district was.
Yeah, no,
I knew it was big.
Yeah, it's one that I'm not going to be able to win by door knocking personally.
No,
I won't be able to go talk to all 840,000 residents. But what I will say is that so for example, kind of talking about being willing to be Daniel going into the lion's den. So there was a woman who asked her a question, and it was very clear, liberal Democrat, didn't like the conservative nature, and so. When I got up and then I started talking about, my position on the border and about how you can't be a sovereign country if you don't have borders and that we're tasked with taking care of our own citizens first before extending charity to people throughout the world or especially illegal aliens that are bringing trafficking and drugs and everything, all these other problems with them. And she kind of looked at me and said, well, how do you reconcile that with, your Christian values and how do you support this and how do you support that? And I said, well, the America First movement, is actually supported in Scripture. In fact, when St. Paul wrote in 1 Timothy, 5, that, hey, he who does not take care of his relatives, in particular his immediate family, has not only betrayed the faith, but is worse than the unbeliever. So if we have homeless veterans, if we have people with mental problems and drug and addictions and they're in the streets, if we aren't taking care of our poor, if our public schools are failing, if we have crumbling infrastructure, but we're putting up illegal aliens who don't have any rights here, and we're letting them use our social services, and we're paying for their transportation, we're giving them money and assistance over our citizens. To me, that is exactly what that passage speaks to. And she said something to the effect of, well, you need to be going to a more open church and blah, 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 and got a little nasty with me. And so I said, well, ma'am, I'll tell you, what place has an incredibly tight immigration policy is heaven, but hell has open borders. And she turned to look to me and she said, that's not true. I said, well, go read the Bible. Yes, it is. And she said, well, I disagree. And I said, and you and I are not going to agree, and that's fine. But I'm telling you who I am. I'm going to represent fairly how I'm going to vote. I'm not your cup of tea. And, if you want to come up here and take the stage because you're going to run for office, by all means. But otherwise, please let somebody else ask a question. That's
a great analogy, though.
Yeah. Well, right afterwards, I had, when it was all said and done, I had 5 or 6 people come up and thank me for that and saying, hey, I really appreciated you taking a hard stand. I appreciated you putting her in her place. And I wasn't trying to put her in her place, but I was trying to say, this is my position. You're not going to persuade me off of it unless you can offer me some compelling information. And right now, all you're doing is appealing to emotion, and that's not going to work with me.
Yeah.
So a very long-winded explanation about how why I don't mind going into hostile environments. In fact, that group that I went to where Craig Goldman showed up, I mean, like I said, I knew that was a Rhino audience. And I even said that. I go, look, I understand that probably a lot of people in here are supportive of State Representative Goldman, and you're right. I mean, but there's a very strong dichotomy between the two of us, and my job is to educate you two on the differences of our opinions, and it's your job to decide. I happen to think there are more people who think like I do, and I guess we're going to find out come March 5th. Yeah. So, there are a lot of these types of things, a lot of meet and greets. You ask people to, if they support your position or if they like what they hear about your campaign and want to help out. You ask them to, either at a restaurant, invite some people for a lunch or a dinner, or open up their house for maybe a little wine and cheese, and, give people a chance to hear you, as small a group as 3 or 4 people, and as big a group as 50, 60 people at some of these things. And just slowly but surely you just keep chipping away and getting your name out there and getting people talking about you. And I mean, next thing I know, yesterday, so typically I take Sundays off because to me that's God's time.
Yeah, it's God and family
and time with my family, and especially with my disabled wife. That's when I make sure I get everybody together and take her out to lunch. Yesterday it was dinner because I had to do one of these podcasts. It was 3 hours long, and it really hardly touched about my race at all. The guy really wanted to talk about the conservative philosophy in the current state of the Republican Party.
These things go fast,
well,
and you don't even realize it.
And this guy was incredibly well versed. In fact, I've retweeted it out as well as I tweeted this one out too. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to call it X. I don't care what Elon says. I mean,
yeah,
it's
hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I finished that, I had somebody who'd reached out to me on Facebook, which I'm not really good about using social media, but clearly another mechanism of kind of getting your positions out and letting people know. And this guy was somebody who knew me from back before my wife got sick, and was a musician and somebody that we used to go listen to. And he was like, oh, man, I'm glad to see that you're running. I want to help out. Can you run by a yard sign? And it was over by TCU near our offices. And so I thought, well, after this podcast, I'll just go run over there and drop off the sign. And so as I drove into the neighborhood, all of a sudden, and I don't know anybody who lives in this, I'm seeing John O'Shafer Congress sign, John O'Shafer Congress sign, John O'Shafer Congress sign. And I'm like going, wow, that just kind of organically popped up. I mean, there were 7 or 8 signs around the neighborhood.
That's got to feel good.
Dropped off. Well, lets me know that my message is resonating.
Home. Yeah.
And people are, now the funny thing of it is, Craig Goldman, who's got, like I said, unlimited funds, he's got these big 4x8 signs, and they're in all the major intersections and things of that nature. I saw his very first yard sign in that neighborhood, but I had 8, he had 1. So, I think I think that you can do lots of things with money, but I think right now, I think people are looking more for genuineness and authenticity and looking for personal interaction and connection.
Absolutely, we are, because we've had everything. Everybody's tired of the same old,
Right?
the same old, same old. It's not selling anymore.
No.
And people are listening and they're paying attention. And the news. Hell, let him spend the money on the news. Nobody watches the news anymore. I mean,
well, and
there is a swath of people out there, but look at the ratings, man.
Right. No, it's all down. People, look, the only thing that people distrust more than Congress right now
is the news.
Media.
Yeah, and even Fox.
But I say all this to encourage your audience, because I think right now is the time where for a little bit of money, you can do text campaigns, you can do Facebook posts, you can tweet, you can get on podcasts and shows, or develop your own and actually start to get your voice out there and heard. Whereas before, this was only for wealthy people or people who are going to be backed by wealthy people.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? I do all right. In fact, I've actually lost a lot of money by running for this because I had to get rid of my business interests and I had to sell it at a discount. But again, to me, the important thing was never money. And the other three people in the race outside of the establishment gentlemen, I would kind of characterize them to varying degrees, similar situations. They've put some of their own money in. They do all right, but they're not somebody that you would go, oh my gosh, look at the money that guy's accumulated. Yeah. And look, I'm my biggest campaign donor. I've put in over $100,000 of my own money into this campaign, and it's not a loan. A lot of times people can loan their campaign money, and then as they get in donations and there's sufficient money to pay themselves back, they do. And I was just like, no, that's a straight contribution. I'm not asking anybody to put in money in a different term or less preferentially than I put my own money in.
Yeah.
I want people to know I am in this. This is my commitment to you. And I'm not going to take any money above and beyond what I myself am willing to put in. Now, ironically, people couldn't write me a check for $100,000 and say, well, John put in $100,000. So there's very strict campaign laws.
Yeah.
And the max, like say today, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm just saying, like, say today you said, John, I'm really wanting to support this campaign. What is the max I can do? Because I just hit the lottery. You can put in $3,300 for the primary race and then $3,300 for the general election.
That's the max?
That's the max for a congressional seat. Yeah, it's very tightly monitored and controlled. And then other outside groups can weigh in, and they can do media buys or commercials or things of that nature, either for you or against your opponents.
So what if people
but there can be no coordination, zero coordination. In fact,
so what if and I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No.
Just to clarify so they understand this, is that $3,300 is the max.
Right.
But what if they're on your website doing $50 at a time? Does it keep?
It aggregates, yeah.
So they're monitoring that.
Yeah, well, and our campaign is as well. So,
Okay.
Again, I want to encourage people. You don't have to have a big team to run for certain offices. Congress is a little different. You have to have a treasurer who really knows what they're talking about and can handle the compliance. You have to have an attorney. As it turns out, my attorney actually is the attorney for the Trump campaign, which is nice. And my treasurer is actually the treasurer for Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of tied into some of the conservative circles there. And really that's about all you have to have and run. Now, I think you're going to drive yourself crazy if you don't have a campaign manager and a field director, but those could be volunteer positions. In fact, one of the people who's running against me right now, it's mostly his family, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's just depends on how big your family is and how competent they are. But
yeah.
But the local races, the city council, the county commissioners, the school boards, those typically don't have that kind of staff. But interestingly enough, they don't have the funding limits. So whereas like somebody in my district the max they could contribute to my campaign is $6,600. Their city council person, they could write a check for $50,000 and it doesn't trigger anything. So,
wow, that's interesting. Well, I've certainly learned, because I never really paid attention to the lower level stuff. Now, This isn't lower level. This K-Grain's receipt is no joke. That you're running for a big seat.
Well, and it's an important district.
It's very important.
Well, Ken Paxton, who speaks at several things that I go to or speaks on my behalf, he gave a speech one time, and in it he said, "Look, Tarrant County is the large red county left in the country. It's number 15. The other top 14 have all fallen and gone blue. One of the last of which was Dallas, because people forget, but 15, 20 years ago, Dallas was a red area. Yeah. And so, Tarrant is clearly in the crosshairs of the progressive left and trying to flip it. Like I said, they still got their work cut out for them because we're a pretty red district.
Oh, yeah.
But, so as goes Tarrant County, so goes Texas. If Texas falls, there's no way you'll ever get a Republican president nominated again, because California went from red to blue. That's the largest number of electoral seats.
Yeah.
The second largest number of electoral seats is Texas. And if Texas and California are both consistently blue, the country, it's over for the Republicans.
I saw a car from California. Do you know that we have 3,500 people a day moving to North Texas? And that's not even counting San Antonio and all those other.
Right.
Which San Antonio to Braunfels areas is I think it's the fastest growing city in America.
Yeah, I think it is New Braunfels.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Parker County is like the sixth largest or fastest growing county in the country.
Shopping for land right now, man. It is insane what land's going for. But I saw this. I was leaving my house, and I saw the cat, and I rolled down my window, and I said, "Hey," and they rolled down their window, and I said, "Welcome to Texas." I said, "But I hope y'all left that y'all's politics." And they said, "Oh no, we're here for a reason."
Right.
I said, "Okay, good, because you're in Texas now, and we don't, especially Fort Worth, we don't put up with that here. We don't want that. So, with all due respect, welcome." But
leave the crazy ideology behind.
And
they're fleeing.
And they were thumbs up and like, we are happy to be here and trust us.
One of the events I worked on over the weekend was Saturday. I think we were talking about before the show at the gun show, and so some people who are volunteering and are election registrars, meaning they can sign voter registrars. They can sign people up to register to vote. They have to take a course. They have to get a certain certification. But they asked me to sit at their table so I could start to introduce myself to potential voters. And while I was there, 4 of the people who came by to register to vote, it was a couple who had just moved from California, and it was a couple who had just moved from Oregon, and they were all here for that same reason. They were like, we had to get out of the craziness. It's become apocalyptic how bad things have gotten there.
Have you been? We went to Hawaii on vacation, and we came back through Seattle.
I wouldn't go there anymore.
It was well, and we went through San Diego to go to Hawaii. We flew out of San Diego. It's insane what it looks like. The TV does not do it justification. It is bad. I mean, bad.
I feel really sorry for the people who are trapped in those situations because they can't afford to move. I mean,
well, I went to just go get me some, we were going to be there for a couple of days, so I was going to just get me some vodka or whatever for my hotel room so I didn't have to go to the bar. And I was scared to go in the store. And I was at an equivalent of our Albertsons or, Brookshire's or something like that. Their liquor store.
Bad?
Yes. I was like, I don't know if or like a Brookshire's, like just a neighborhood store, because their liquor stores were in their grocery stores.
Right.
So I was getting snacks for the kids and all that. I was just like getting all the one-stop shop to where we don't have to, buy everything. And it was bad.
No, I look, and I used to love Seattle. Beautiful city.
It is beautiful.
San Diego, which is actually more of a red-leaning city in California. But, the big blue metropolitan areas, man, I wouldn't go in. They're out of control. Just the homelessness and the open air drug markets and people using, and the lack of enforcement on crime, and so you've got this criminal element. I mean, how many times do you see? I know it made everybody's head explode when they saw a bunch of illegal aliens coming and attacking 2 cops and beating them up, and then being no bail just released. And then they're flipping off the camera as they're getting on a bus through taxpayer spending to be driving out to California. But no thanks. I don't know. And part of me feels really sorry, like I said, for the people there. But another part of me said, well, what did you think you were voting for?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you play stupid games, you win
get
stupid prizes.
Yeah. What did you watch the Super Bowl?
No, I refuse.
Should have seen some of the commercials.
Well, and it wasn't the commercials.
They were anti-Jesus commercials.
Well, I've actually seen those prior, and which was really off. About supporting immigration and Jesus was an immigrant and things of that nature.
They had a trans guy pouring water, pouring water on Jesus' feet, but they were using it. It was a trans pouring the water onto an African American guy. I think I'd have to go back and look at it, but I didn't. I streamed it through YouTube to where because I refuse to have any of those channels in my house.
And I don't want to watch. Having a black national anthem. I mean that's so denigrating any way you look at it. So you mean to tell me that our black brothers and sisters aren't just included as fellow American citizens?
Exactly.
And I'm not upset because they're getting some special distinction. I'm upset because what message is that sending?
Is saying we're putting you in this
distinct and different.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, I mean, to me, you're my brothers and sisters. I don't care what.
Man, I'll shut up. I'll say this, and then I'll get off the Super Bowl because I want to give you more time to do you because we're approaching an hour. Man, the only thing I can say about the Super Bowl is that I felt like I got ripped off last night, and I feel like there's a lot of people on Twitter talking about it. A lot of people on YouTube. I mean, it felt like that thing was scripted. The Chiefs were getting it handed to them the whole game. And right at the end, they have this beautiful little redemption story. And I was like, man, this is BS. I felt like it was rigged. Like,
did Taylor Swift catch the winning touchdown pass at the back of the end zone?
God. But no. But it just, you couldn't, like, one time Mahomes came out, he only ran 3 yards past the first down line. Or not the first down line, but the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Okay? Should have been 2nd and 7. You know how they switch up everything on there on the bottom right-hand corner?
Mm-hmm.
2nd and 7, 3rd and 4. All of a sudden, and there's a video online right now because I was researching this morning. So it felt so ripped. And there's a video online to where it shows that it should have been 2nd and 7. They changed up all the stuff down there, like ads and all this kind of stuff.
Right, down in the Chiron.
And then, boom, comes back on. It's 1st and 10. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my bookkeeper just showed up. But anyway,
and by that you mean like accounting. You don't mean like your bookie.
Yeah, no. Yeah, okay. She does a really good job. She does a really good job. So I was telling a friend of mine, I was like, he's like, you ought to use my CPA. And I said, no, y'all are always in some problem. I don't want your CPA. I've never had a problem, you know, knock on wood. But I mean, when your stuff's prepared properly,
right?
You don't have to worry about all that stuff.
Right.
Worry about the IRS. Stuff's lickety clean. So is there anything else you want to touch on?
Well, so kind of the takeaway I would say of this podcast is,
or how big of a hurry are you in is what I'm asking.
Actually I know you've got another podcast you're getting ready to do. So, I'm good for another 10, 15 minutes if that's what you want.
Yeah. So just pretty much get off whatever you want to talk about. Okay.
Well, so anyway, again, trying to encourage your audience that, hopefully we kind of start to take away some of the mystery of what it means to actually be a candidate and to run if you feel called to do so. Make sure you have a position and you've thought through your position, be willing to be able to debate it and defend it and kind of talk about it. And, look, if you hear new evidence or whatever, maybe you can modify it, but you need to get comfortable with public speaking. You need to be looking for channels and avenues to reach people similar to this program, going to the different papers, going to different shows, all the different groups, churches, things of that nature. So it can be done, and you don't have to be independently wealthy to run for office anymore, which is good. And look, we're going to shock everybody by being outraised, 5-1 or 6-1 or whatever the number ultimately it settles at, and being in a runoff with this guy and then beating him in the runoff. And that's my prognostication. And it's not because of me, but it's because of this huge volunteer army and their passion, and because, I'm trying to be obedient to God, and he called me to do this for a reason. So that's kind of the flight path I see there. But I can't not do a show with you without at least venting a little bit over the current state of the Republican Party. And I think I mentioned that, I'm always looking at it as things are awful now, but it's always darkest before the dawn, and
right.
I see reason for hope. Well, one of the reasons I think I mentioned was the fact that we've already gotten rid of Kevin McCarthy. We're about to get rid of Ronna McDaniel as the RNC chair, and then it looks like we're going to get rid of Mitch McConnell.
Thank God.
But because of what they did, the Senate, and we grinched about it in the last show, but the Senate passed this bipartisan. Look, when you hear the term bipartisan, it means the U.S. citizen's about to get screwed royally and not being kissed or taken out to dinner first. So, the whole thing of that was it was literally just a smidgen of money kind of sprinkled on the border in a way that they didn't really have to enforce anything. It kind of codified the illegal invasion, but it gave them the clean checkbook to go write the giant, massive check to Ukraine. And I don't know if Zelensky has pictures on all these senators and people in government, or if it's their involvement in there's child trafficking and organ harvesting that's going on over there, if it's the biological weapons labs that actually were set up with, was it Dick Lugar and Barack Obama went over and did. In fact, I fact-checked it. The Department of Defense has spent, according to their site, since it was like 2005, I believe, it's been over $100 million on 46 different facilities doing biological research, which is just a fancy way of saying bioweapons research. Just like this whole COVID, that wasn't... You don't develop the disease to find a cure for it when the disease doesn't exist. You're figuring out how you can weaponize something, and then you kind of get the vaccine or cure so that you can protect yourself when you unleash it. But anyway, so I don't know what the obsession is with Ukraine, but the fig leaf got took off. And if you understand my reference, kind of the way Michelangelo was required to paint fig leaves, or not Michelangelo wasn't, but they painted fig leaves on some of his master works to kind of cover genitalia because he was a classicist. It was never about the border. It was always about getting foreign aid out to Ukraine. And I know this now unequivocally because the moment that bill did not pass in the Senate, even with their extreme measures to try and get it passed, because enough Republicans drew a line in the sand and said, I don't care if Mitch McConnell said we're going to do this, we're not going to do this. But then they egregiously, after promising they would not do anything about the border issue in Ukraine before fixing our own border, what did they do? They went and took a clean Ukraine spending bill to the Senate, and it's going up tonight. And, it just, again, they lied to the American public. They show that they're prioritizing other people over the best interest of the American citizens, which last time I checked, I think 0 Ukrainian nationals elected them and put them in office.
Exactly.
And then lastly, something that I heard J.D. Vance, Senator Vance, who's a freshman senator who's doing an outstanding job and is a very strong America First, kind of political leader. He said, look, the other thing they're trying to do is they're trying to put in the trap for President Trump for his next term so that they can impeach him a third time, because they're trying to constrain him and tie his hands so he'll have no diplomatic wiggle room to negotiate the settlement of that war, which he has famously said that once he's elected, within 24 hours, he'd have it settled. And look, I mean, we talked about Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin. Putin laid out a pretty compelling case.
Yes,
I understand
he did.
He's a bad guy, and I understand he's definitely going to put facts in a certain perspective based on what he's trying to accomplish. But
his horns aren't as big as what they said they are.
No, and didn't he also kind of give you reason to think that maybe if he was dealing with Trump, that maybe the outcome would be different?
Oh, you darn right it would be.
Yeah, because they were people who understood, look, Putin's going to look after Russia, Trump's going to look after the United States. There's some way to fix it where they're not squabbling and trying to fight a proxy war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had to vent and get that off. But the good news of that is that I think it has exposed Mitch McConnell and has made him look so foolish, and that he has lost so much credibility with kind of the non-collaborative senators that I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't lose his minority leader position over this.
Good.
In which case, we're a clean 3 for 3 getting ready to go into the 2024 general election.
Yeah.
And we give Trump a clean slate of actual leadership. I already like Mike Johnson. I know that he hasn't dug in hard enough on some of the spending issues. I also appreciate the fact that he's got an incredibly slim majority right now based on some of the people leaving their positions. But hopefully we get him reinforcements. I think he's an America First Christian who is going to stick to his principles, will be very supportive of President Trump, and hopefully we can find the same in the Senate. And then, frankly, whoever can fix this broken RNC and make sure that it's not occupied with a bunch of mega donors who are never Trumpers and throw a bunch of charade like they did with these primary contests where
I think Trump's taking care of that himself.
Well, I would be happy with whoever he selects, just so long as he shows good discernment this time.
Well, what I'm saying is,
but he backed Ron McDaniel.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, he's created his own party.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
There's no independent party anymore. He's created the Trump party.
Well, it's the Republican version of Jacksonian democracy. I mean, it's a national populist movement. It's rebelling against this ruling class of oligarchs.
Yeah.
That because they were always the mega donors, thought that they could dictate the policy regardless of what the voter sentiment was.
Yeah. Well, that's not the case anymore. And I say it all the time around here is that we've been caged so long.
Right.
We've broken the fence. And we're crawling right now, but at least we're moving. And I see it everywhere that I go, and I'm noticing in Parker County. I live in Parker County.
Yeah. That
there's a lot of ex-business people running for small stuff, just getting involved, sprinkling. And I mean, we've done business together, and I mean, you know what I mean? Like we're in the same, but I know a lot of people that do a lot of big things, and they're talking about it, or their friends, or you know what I mean. Like there's people that are wanting to say, hey, not that they've made enough money, but this country's more important than making millions of dollars. I'd rather go devote my time to service,
right,
and make a difference in this, because this is enough, man. We've had enough.
No, well, I've put my money where my mouth is.
Yes,
I've already cost myself millions by running for this race, but
yeah, again, I
remember. This country belongs to us, and it's time for us to demand the steering wheel back. Enough letting the crazies, drive us over the cliff. I mean,
oh yeah. Well, no, and I remember the day. Yeah, you had already made up your mind. You were doing it, but it's when we left with lunch. It was a small position. What was it? What did you start out as?
What with regard to what?
Politics.
Oh, just a precinct chair. I was a precinct chair. And
you were like, anybody can do this.
Right.
And it made me want to do it.
Well, I encourage it. People need to get involved in their party and, again, take control of it. I promise you, they were not enthused when I filed for an empty precinct chair. Think of it. It was a precinct that had no Republican leadership representing the area and trying to get out the vote and educate the voters in the area. I applied for it, and they originally just kind of, oh, well, you didn't vote in the last primary election. Well, no, I lived out of the country. So then I had the Attorney General, my friend Ken, write them a letter saying you guys would be idiots not to accept him. He would be a tremendous asset to your organization. And even then it was a couple of months later before I actually got invited to the new orientation and sworn in as a precinct chair. So yeah, they don't roll out the welcome mat, but more and more of us are getting in and taking control.
Well, that's my point of what I'm saying to them is that you started anybody can do that.
Right.
Anybody can get involved.
That's the makeup of the Republican Party. It is from the ground up.
Yeah.
The precinct chairs have the power.
Wow. Well, you definitely got me interested. I told you what, I just, I don't want to take a position that's a lazy position that I can't get anything done.
Right.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It didn't feel right just taking money and be like, it's taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
County truck, run your business. I was like, that doesn't sound like that's a good thing.
No.
Now I know that what I would be doing, I could fix their problems. Just running the budget properly.
Right.
But yeah, kind of some of the attitudes that I it's taxpayer money anyway. And I was like, well, that's not how I look at it, because I'm a taxpayer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's what That's what I was like, hold on a second here, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but that's why I didn't. I was like, I don't feel comfortable taking that much money. That's a lot of money a year.
So you know who Thomas Sowell is, right? The economist. He's probably one of the greatest intellectuals that we have alive in the country today. And I'm paraphrasing him, but and he started off, he was a black man, grew up in the Bronx, I believe it was, may have been Brooklyn, but was in the military, got out, went to school, was a Marxist, and then actually started working at a government agency, and then kind of got red-pilled and converted. But what he famously said was to the effect of the most efficient use of money is when you're spending your money for a good or a service that you're going to use personally because you're going to do the best job you can shopping between the quality and the price and make that decision. The least efficient use of money is when you're using other people's money for a good or a service that you're not going to use because then price and quality don't really matter to you. Well, that's our government in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It's the least efficient use of money. And unfortunately, too many people have that cavalier attitude of, well, it's not my personal money, it's just a taxpayer money. Well, no, you need to run it like it's your personal money.
Yeah, well, I think there's still we still have a ton of sheep out there, but I think that it's woke up many wolves that have been dormant.
I prefer to think of them as lambs, or from lambs to lions. Sorry.
Yeah, no, well, I've always said wolf and sheep, but no, I like the lion and lamb. Yeah. When you said that the other day, I like that.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Oh, wait, first,
yeah,
I do need to get a commitment. I am at least getting one vote in Parker County this primary, aren't I?
Oh, no,
I just want you on record.
No, trust me. No, I've already reached out to everybody I know in Parker County.
Good, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and yes, and I'm not done yet either.
Okay,
I haven't even started. So I went through my list of everybody that I know in Parker County. Okay, and then now I'm about to go to all my contacts in my phone to find out.
All right,
and I've got a lot. I've got like 500 contacts, and they're all. I mean, like I said, we've done some business transactions. I've got people that can spread the. I mean, a lot of people too, but I've got a pretty good web myself.
Good. Well, that's what it takes. So I appreciate it. Brother.
Yeah, and they're all people like us too.
Yep.
Or we wouldn't have done business together. So, well, go to website again for small donations. And anybody that in the Tarrant County area within his district, which is District 12.
Yep. Congressional District 12.
$10, $15, $20, $30. This guy needs he needs money. He's got, not that he's not poor, but I'm just saying his campaign needs money. He's got a guy that's got an open checkbook over there. $10, $15, $20, $25, $50. I will be. That's why I asked if they incrementally. Say they do it a week. If they did $15 a week or $25 a week.
Yeah, no, we have where you can make it a monthly pay. Now again, we're right up against the primary, so but yeah.
But moving forward from there after you win.
And again, even like to your point, it's as much it's partially about the money. And again, my candidate, my opponent has over $1 million raised in the bank right now, and I'm not needing to get there. I just need to kind of stay within, an arm's length distance. So if he outraises me 4 times or 5 times, that's fine. I just need money to do some certain grassroots things that we want to do. We have a volunteer in a field ground game that he doesn't come close to touching, and give me people over money any day of the week, and twice on Sunday. But the other thing is that other people look at, and especially like for endorsements. Look, I can assure you right now, I know President Trump has looked at this race, and if I had more money in my bank account and had more donors, I'm almost assured that he would have already weighed in with an endorsement. I know people who personally went to his and spoke to him and made him aware of this. So even if it's $5 or $10 and you think, well, I'm not really helping out much, that actually helps me contact 5, 10, 15 people more through text.
That's how Trump got elected.
Like that. And the other thing is, look, you're building my numbers, my donor numbers too, which are things that people pay attention to. So yeah, trust me, no amount is insignificant, and any help and assistance would be appreciated.
And where can they go to get
best,
it?
And the best of which is, you can endorse me with your vote. So I'm asking for your vote. But yeah, if you go to my website, which is O'Shea, 4 Texas.org. So that's OSHEA, 4 Texas.org. And there you can find all my social media, all our previous media clips, events that we're going to be speaking at. We've got a big town hall tomorrow that we're doing over in Fort Worth. In fact, it was supposed to be a debate, but State Representative Goldman ducked us. The organizers even said that they would change the time and place to accommodate him, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just busy across the board."
Sounds like we already know what we're dealing with there.
Yep. So, and then also volunteer and donate. I mean, that's where you can do it is from my website. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we post up with all that up there for you.
Perfect. Yeah. No, I love the way Tyler edited it. So it looked.
Did you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, he did some cool stuff. So, all right. Well, we need a guy like this in office. I promise you. I know this guy. I've seen how he operates. And every deal that I ever did with him, which we did some they were decent deals. I mean, and everything was always clean. I mean, clean. In an industry, the concrete industry. So, but at any rate, we need a guy like him in office. So please donate, vote, and
get the word out.
And help get the word out. Even if you know 20 people in Tarrant, 20, 50, 100, whoever, get his name spread. We need this guy in office. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, except you keep leaving out Parker County.
Parker County. I'm sorry, Parker County too. Thanks for coming.
I appreciate you, brother.
Good friend. You got all my support, man. So, and we'll talk about ways that we can do that. I didn't want to waste your time on here with that. So, all right, everybody, like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, comments. This last one, we got some good comments. We're on Rumble. Come to Rumble. Everybody just, YouTube's YouTube. That's fine. We like YouTube. But come to Rumble, okay? Smash and subscribe at Rumble. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the website. Contact at JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the email if you want to reach out to us. Thank y'all. You have a good day.